Hey, thanks for joining us today. This is your February edition of Over-the-Counter Tax Investing News by Parcel Fair. This is the Parcel Fair channel. We are going to show you how to do all these things, finding these obscure hidden OTC markets on Parcel Fair, how to search them, save a ton of time, look at reports, and even go through the steps to buy. And it's all going to be based on what you can do in February of 2026. A lot of these are year-round markets, but we're going to cover that and talk about the seasonality. There is actually OTC seasonality in the market when you can buy things in some states. We'll cover that, and we're going to do an introduction here where we're just going to level set, make sure we're on the same page about over-the-counter purchases, because a lot of people just flock to those and don't really know why they're flocking to them. They think it's just the best thing, but let's go through and make sure you know the good, the bad, the ugly, and let's hit those misconceptions. So we'll just take a minute. I strongly recommend, even if you've seen this before, just to get the refresher. I'll breeze through it for you. So the first misconception is that all tax auction leftovers become available for purchase over the counter. Well, it's not entirely true because many tax investing markets with large auction inventories don't have a mechanism for selling over the counter. Those leftovers are going to go to later auctions in states like Indiana, New Jersey, and a bunch of other ones. Some other states are actually going to sell their leftovers eventually through land banks. And so we call a land bank an over the counter inventory, but the reason I list it separately here is because if, like for Georgia, for example, if a parcel, or Alabama, a parcel clears auction, it may take years before it shows up in the land bank. So there's a gap where you can't buy it. So the next misconception, we're going to talk about: only junk properties are left over from auctions and become available over the counter. Some people think if it cleared auction and it's over the counter, it must be junk, right? Well, it's not true. We can show you thousands that are the counterpoint to that argument, and we're going to do that. Many large auctions just don't have enough bidders to buy everything for sale, so hence you have leftovers. The leftovers are simply just the last properties at the end of the auction where people had already spent all their money. It's that simple. Sometimes leftovers just happen because the buyers at the auction ran out of money. That's one reason. Another reason we get leftovers is because these auction advertisements can be obscure, cryptic, not well publicized. Sometimes the auctions, they are very tough to find in print newspapers and nowhere on the internet. In those cases, you may have leftovers just because investors, maybe it's confusing, they didn't grasp what was for sale. Maybe it was obscure, they couldn't find what was for sale. Um, there's a lot of reasons why you can have leftovers. These are just two of the biggest ones we found why something would not go at auction. All right, moving right along, let's hit these three. Purchasing tax property over the counter is easier than buying at auction? Not really. Every process is different. Some can be complicated, some can be slow. Purchasing tax property over the counter is faster than buying at auction. Also, not always true. Some over the counter purchasing processes can actually take weeks or longer. I will say months and even maybe a year in some of these states where they're just backlogged. So, over the counter is not always the fastest or the easiest. And next one is the cheapest. It's not always the cheapest because since these properties got left over from an auction, guess what happens while they're sitting there in inventory? They continue to accrue unpaid taxes and interest and fees. And next thing you know, the price has gone up much higher than it may have gone at auction, even. The longer the property's been delinquent, the more expensive it can be to purchase. So, not always the case, but it's really not a way to get property for cheaper than auction. Because think about it. If you're going to skip the auction, say, I really want this property, but I'm going to wait and buy it over the counter if it clears. Well, you could have bought it at auction. If it clears, and that means no one bid, which means you probably would have been the only bidder, which means you would have bought it for the opening bid. So that doesn't really hold water. So some general guidance before we move on. If you're working in a new tax investing market, just don't presume anything. If you're switching states, if it's your first time, don't you go to ChatGPT and say, I know everything is about tax investing over the counter. It is not universal. Different states have different rules. Competition can vary between different states. Even counties can vary sometimes. So the way you buy in one county is different in another. Just check out Alabama. We just put out a video, 10 ways to buy delinquent property in Alabama, tax delinquent property. We cover all the different ways depending on the county and when the sale was. It could be all sorts of ways to buy, and Parcel Fair helps you with that. We walk you through the steps depending on the property. But if you're just doing this blind and just assume that, hey, if I buy the same way in Calhoun County as I do in Shelby County, you're going to be disappointed. And sometimes those deals, they're not where you would expect. They're not sitting in the over the counter. Sometimes they're somewhere else. We'll cover that too. So yeah, so never presume that buying over the counter is cheapest, fastest, preferred way to buy. Instead, spend your energy and focus on learning how that state works and keep an open mind about the best way to buy. That means the best way to buy could be auction, could be over the counter, it could be a land bank, it could be buying from resellers and other investors, or it could even be approaching the homeowner in some states if they have redemption left and buying their interest and essentially buying their redemption rights. That doesn't always work, but in some markets, if you're sure there's redemption and you're sure you're talking to the owner, you can negotiate a deal. It's just buying a house, basically. So now we've covered the bases. Let's get into the interesting part how many tax auction properties are left over and available over the counter. So I've built this little funnel here to illustrate. We're going to throw our 2024 number up there first. In 2024, we tracked about 1.17 million properties going to auction. That was parcel fair alone. That's not the whole industry. In 2024, we didn't have all 50 states, but in 2025 we did. Again, we're covering all the states. There are still some obscure auctions that we're pulling in out of newspapers and other places, but our number in 2025 is much closer to reality, 1.275 million roughly, or yeah, 1.27 million, we'll just say that. So if you take those auctions and look at what was unsold, in 2024 we saw 155,000 properties added OTC. In 2025, we saw closer to 200,000. That's also because we found new inventories of OTCs we didn't have before. So, again, take it with a grain of salt, but let's do some back of the napkin math here. In 2024, roughly 13% of the properties cleared auction and went unsold. In 2025, we noticed about 15%. I'm not going to swear that these numbers are spot on exact, but these are directional numbers. If we said somewhere between 12 and 18% are going to go over the counter, that means you're missing between 80 and 90% of all the tax properties. So OTC, yes, it should be in your tool belt. Yes, you should understand the markets. Yes, it's a great skill to buy, but you're looking at a small fraction of the market, less than 20%, if all you do is buy OTC. You really should balance it out with auctions and other ways that we talk about on this channel. So let's talk about where are the over-the-counter properties, because we've alluded to them, and we're going to talk about the top 19 markets for OTC availability. There's a new one in the list. I'm not going to tell you which one yet, but we'll get to it in a minute. So these are the ones we're covering today. And let's put it in a little pie chart here just to show. We took all the little 1 and 0%ers out. So this shows you distribution. Arizona, Alabama, Florida, the top three, hands down. West Virginia is on and off market. We're going to talk about the seasonality there. Mississippi, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Michigan. And then you get up to the 2%ers with Tennessee, Maryland, Arkansas, Wisconsin. Even those that have 2%, though, notice Tennessee and all those, there's still around 2,000 or more OTCs on those. So it's not, their market share may be just 2%, but there's still thousands of properties to look at there. And we are going to show you how to do that in a minute. But first, let's talk about the over-the-counter inventory forecast. If you watch this channel, the last OTC news video we did at the beginning of 2026, we introduced this concept and did a whole video about the seasonality of over-the-counter markets. We did a forecast based on years of data, years of monitoring these things. And that forecast is on screen right now, where you can see the darker green is where properties get added, the lighter colors and the white is where there's no properties added in the white, and everything in between. If this is an interesting topic for you, I strongly recommend going back and watching that full video. We really gave it a good treatment on what to expect this year based on prior years. And I think that was some interesting content. I haven't seen anything quite like it anywhere, so I'm happy with that video. It's the OTC forecast, OTC news on this channel. It was the January 2026 video. I'll drop it in the description for you, so help you find it. Okay, so let's get to our live demo. We're going to look at some property research. We're going to work through some deals, talk about how to find these properties, and we're going to talk about parcel fair because that is the tool that's going to help you do this. Honestly, I don't know much about other sites out there, but based on our customers, I don't think anyone does it quite like we do or gives OTCs or auctions really the treatment we do. So we're really happy with being able to help you out here. Very happy with how the product's working out. This is Parcel Fair. This is the homepage. You can get a free trial, sign up. There's a lot of stuff going on here, so let's do something to help you break this down. I'm going to click on the dashboard, which is under Tools. You can go to My Dashboard right there. And the reason I'm bringing up the dashboard is because this is a great place to explore and discover new markets. Now, the top panels are all about your lists and your price quotes and your favorites. These next two panels on screen, left side is basically deed auctions, right side is lien auctions. It's the top 10 by number of properties. So you're going by sheer volume of market size here. If you're trying to find a new market in the coming months and want to see the biggest auctions, this is a good panel. There's two middle panels for that. But what I want to focus on in this video are the bottom two panels. We've taken the top OTC markets by property count, not value, but property count. And on the left panel here, you're going to see these are over-the-counter deeds and land banks. We group them together because they're very similar. And on the right side, we put all the OTC tax lien markets into a panel. Remember, this is just, I think, the top 15 or 20. So when you see 45,000 parcels, that's just in these top 15 markets. That's not even a representation of everything on our site. But if you're looking for big markets with a lot to choose from, these two panels help you out. Left side again are deeds and land banks. Right there at the top, 9,000 parcels in Jefferson, Birmingham, Alabama. Then you have Kansas City, another Jefferson Bessemer. You're basically going to go Memphis, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Mississippi. All these different markets that are large are going to show up in the order of size. Same story on the right hand side. You're just talking about tax liens instead of deeds. Don't snooze on liens, though. A lot of liens nationwide have shorter redemption periods than deeds. So this channel talks about that all the time. In fact, if you want a good deep dive into that, we put out two videos at the beginning of January that give you the forecast for the year on lien auctions in one video, deed auctions in another. That's really going to walk you through the terms and the interest rates and redemption periods and how some of these lien markets can compete with the deed markets, and sometimes they're better. You're talking about 60 days or 120-day redemption on a lien where you can get the property in less than just a few months. Some of the deed markets have redemption a year or longer. So sometimes the lien market is the fastest way to buy and faster than the deed market. So don't snooze on tax liens. I know a lot of people look at deeds first, but you really need to balance that out. I'd focus on what state you're buying in and then figure out which one works best if both are available. So let's jump into some states. I'm going to start with a new one today. We're going to take Illinois, and we added our first inventory for Illinois today. This is going to be Cook County. Let's clear out our filters. So Cook County is, of course, Chicago, and we have 944 properties to check out here. And it's funny because right across the border here, we always talk about Lake County, Indiana, which is a suburb, and there's always thousands and thousands of properties. Right now, there's 6,000 or more properties over there for you to look at. But it's nice to see on the other side of the state line, on the other side of the city and county here as well, some properties in Chicago. So you can kind of helicopter around and look at these this way. By the way, if these bubbles bother you, just click on markers and overlays in the top right, and the first option will turn them off. You can also turn them right back on. So I've gotten to where I kind of like them because I like to helicopter mode way out here, like in your outer space. But if I want to bring it in, the further you zoom in, they actually get out of your way. So you can see rooftops, and you can see, that little bubble shrunk down. And, now we're looking at a property there. In fact, let's just start with that property. I didn't pick one out for us, so I'm going to view the report. Hopefully the Google car drove to this one, so we'll have a street view for it. They did. Okay, so we're looking at this house. We're looking at $20,000 is the amount due from the land bank. And if we wanted to buy it, this green button right here, click on that. It walks you through the steps and links you to the page to buy it. So with any land bank, I should always mention there will be terms, there will be rules, there will be programs. And so in this case, what you're looking at is a residential purchasing program, residential community developer for $20,000. You'll notice there are terms right here. There's due dates on the offers. So in this particular case, they're going to close the window in 20 days. So these deals show up and they leave. So act accordingly. One other thing to call out here is Land banks can have multiple purchasing programs, and so in the case of Cook County, we decided to try something new on Parcel Fair, and we broke it into two separate inventories. One is the Cook County Land Bank's commercial industrial program, and one is the residential. So if there's 944 total properties, if we filter residential, there's 858. If we filter commercial, there's 762. You probably are telling me those numbers don't add up. There's much bigger. Well, that's because some of the properties are actually in both programs. I don't know why, but what you can do is if you find one that's in both, oh, I managed to click one. What do you know? This is a vacant lot, and we have both purchase options stacked up here to illustrate that it's in two programs to buy. And once you're on the Cook County Land Bank, you can figure out which one's favorable to your situation. Since this is a vacant lot, my hunch is that they may rezone it if you decide to, or maybe they're open to it being either one. I don't know why it's in two programs, but it is. So that's one way. If you really just want to see the residential ones only, of course, you can filter over here under inventory, go residential only, and vice versa. So the Cook County Land Bank is a new one for us to talk about. Illinois, a new state. We have other land banks we're going to add there as well. So this is an area of growth for us. You should be paying attention to that whenever we have a state we're adding inventories to. So we'll move on to Maryland. And what we're going to do is show you a different feature on Parcel Fair. If you go to the Tools menu up top, you can see an OTC inventory tracker. And this works well in markets if you want to track it over time. And so we're looking at Maryland over time, a lot of dips and ups and downs. These green bars show when properties were added. The red ones show when they're removed. You can click on these and see 86 parcels removed in November. Some of them came back because they say available, but they were removed and came back. And that's exactly what I want to talk about is this Baltimore City. Let's filter by county. It's going to take some of the noise out. They've had a lot of fluctuation the last 2 months. I think they were restructuring their site, pulling properties off, putting them back on. And so we saw a huge drop in properties at one point where they took a lot of the buy into Baltimore program properties off. And then they added a bunch of OTC liens as well. So right now we're looking at 818 properties. Some of these were added for the first time to the site, and some of them were added as repeats. So you can go through these and take a look. You know, if you wanted to actually filter that inventory, I would recommend going to the map. And what you can do there is Maryland, go Baltimore City. And now this is where these search filters on Parcel Fair are really going to shine to cut through these 1,400 properties fast. If you want vacant land, click vacant land right there in improvements. If you want acreage on that vacant land, go put a minimum of 1 acre there. You have 8 properties. So out of 1,400 properties, we narrowed it down to 8 that have more than an acre. If that's not your strategy, come back here to the filters. Let's do improvements this time. That cut 500 out. This is basically looking at property that is improved and has some kind of structure on it. Let's go ahead and put a county appraisal minimum of $20,000. Maybe that'll weed it down a little bit. That took 600 out. That's going to get the little kind of junky properties that are not worth your time out of the equation. 365 properties. Let's see if we can go a little further. Let's do amount due. Let's say I'm going to put a minimum of $500 because it doesn't do anything. But if there were some cheap liens, I might want to skip over those. Just not worth my time. Let's put a $2,000 maximum on there and see what that does. Okay, that capped us down to 3 properties. So let's just do that. Let's just see what those 3 properties are. These are structures that you can buy, and they're asking less than what was my filter? Asking less than $2,000 for it. Oh man, these don't look great. I mean, that one's actually kind of junky there too. So maybe we've limited our price too much. We'll just take a peek at this one. It looks like there's a shack or a shed in someone's backyard. So I'm gonna tweak this. I'm gonna take off my cap on the amount due and go back to 365. This is sort of the way you would play in a market to figure out what's what. So let's say, okay, $20,000 minimum appraisal. Let's just go with that. 365 properties. We'll take a peek at whatever I see first. It's going to be probably a row house. And from the satellite, I don't see much else. The backyard there. So I can tell you which one it is. It was the second one. It's this one with the boarded up. Wow, they're all boarded up. They're so small, it's hard to tell. So we're actually on the end. The end cap one right here is the one that we are looking at. So we can drive around the block. careful not to hit any cars or people, and get a look at it from this side. It's definitely brick. You're gonna have the end here. Um, we can tell as much as we can from the Google Street View. Let's go behind it and just see if we can spot anything behind. Google didn't go down the alley, but we're going to see if we can. Whoops, I went too far. We're trying to zoom in here and take a look. Definitely structural damage. Maybe there was a wall here or something. I can see the back of the building is intact, but this wall concerns me. That might have been the building that was actually here with this cinder block. It was taken out or something. So, there's things to be concerned about here. If you live in the area and understand construction permits in Baltimore, then maybe this is for you. I'm going to pass on it because I don't know it that well. But from this property report, we can also tell there's one tax lien available for 2025. They're asking $44,000 for it. The county values it at $99,000, which is the county assessment appraisal. But our ARV report shows $212,000, which is going to be the after repair value using sales comps in the area to estimate what you could sell this for if it was repaired. That's the R in ARV is repaired. If you click view sales comps, we can go see those other ones. Get a look, basically saying, did these other sales really match my property? And when I look at it, it's a lot of townhouses, a lot of 3.2s, square footage, built around the same time, 1900, not whatnot, But the match percentage on these is actually like 77% for various reasons. A lot of it, I think, is that this market's probably just tricky to estimate in, but and the sales are older. That's actually the other reason. These sales are from 2024. So this is a tough market to estimate. I think a local person would have a better shot, maybe with a realtor trying to estimate this. But based on the averages, we think you could get it up to around the 200 mark. That's again an estimate in every sense of the word. So you would need to probably start with that number and then work it yourself with your inside knowledge of the market and figure out what you think you can get for the property. Because if you're buying it for 44 grand for closing in 6 months and then taking the construction crew to it, you need to be confident that you can get money out of that deal. So this one could be tight. It's a high price, not the highest potential. But it's good that we walked through a deal here. One other thing to note is that this green button here says this is a vacant property. That means the Postal Service says no one's checking mail there and no signs of life. So our best estimation is that this property is vacant. So we'll move on. That's Maryland, Baltimore OTCs. Let's switch over to Tennessee. We're going to pick up the pace a little bit. We spent a lot of time on those first two states. So Tennessee, back to our trusty OTC inventory tracker report. We can see 41 properties added. Spoiler, they're all in Shelby, Tennessee. There are no other OTC inventories in Tennessee at the moment, but the Shelby land bank is a good one if you're looking for property there just to pick up and get that title, basically clear title right off the bat. 41 parcels. We can sort this table. Let's see what the total value. Let's see the most valuable one. $55,000. It's just not too terribly expensive, or too terribly valuable. So yeah, we're just panorama view. We can take a closer look at that house. I mean, that's one of the better looking tax properties I've seen. You could probably pressure wash that and do some minor repairs. Unless the back has got problems, the front looks okay. If you want to buy this property, we walk you through those steps right here on the purchase options panel, that big blue button. This will take you straight to the application on their site, and you can buy it there. Lots of program details and disclaimers and things to read once you get there, but that takes you to the place where you would buy this property. So, top to bottom, Tennessee doesn't have a lot going on, but in this one market, there's plenty. Shelby has a lot of big auctions too. Let's go to Mississippi and see what's new there. We just have 17 parcels added in January. They're all over the place in different counties. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that first one that starts with the O. But Winston County had some too. And this is a good way for you to check those out. Let's say you want to do total value and sort that one. The most valuable property is only 10 grand, so it may not be worth it. But let's say you want to buy a $10,000 vacant lot, and essentially what you're going to do now is do your due diligence, figure out if you want to buy it, and this green button right here takes you through quite a few steps to apply. But this is a good program. They have a good purchasing program there in Mississippi. So if you can get over the hurdle of these steps to apply for a property, then it can be a very rewarding market to invest in. We do see changes there every month if we're thinking about seasonality here. Arkansas, same story. Every month things change. These are the leftovers from last year's sale. They fluctuate quite a bit, as you can see. We've tracked this inventory since 2020, and it's all over the place. We had a huge dip last year as things seemed to get liquidated out of inventory. And then once the auction started to end, August, September, October, we had a few thousand added back. Looks like about 3 or 4 thousand total there if you add those months together. So Arkansas is one of the easiest states to invest in. They just make it so easy. Click on one of these parcels, take a look at it on our site, and basically what you're going to be doing is, since these were left over from the summer auctions, uh, you're going to need to kick off a bid on these things to start the purchasing process. But we have all the steps here for you, along with the link to the site. Everything you need to get started there in Arkansas. You're just buying a deed with no redemption. It's very straightforward as far as the terms go. So let's switch markets over to Georgia, see what's new there. We've not been tracking Georgia very long at all. In fact, you can see November's when we started, just 3 months of data. But 293 parcels were added in January. It looks like Richmond is most of them are in Richmond at least. Richmond, I believe, is Augusta. A couple, so we had DeKalb and Fulton also, and the rest were in Richmond. So these are all going to be land banks in Georgia. Again, I was at the beginning of the video, I mentioned when a property clears a tax deed sale in Georgia, it can sit idle for a few years before it qualifies for the land bank, depending on which land bank and the rules. But this is essentially, um, the Georgia Land Bank Authority, Augusta, Georgia. Click on the green button, walk through the steps, and in this one, we're able to take you straight to the property, just like we did in most of these land banks. So there's the property listing, and that's how you would, with any of these land banks, Fulton or DeKalb or any of them, that's how you would handle it. You just click on the green button, go to the property, uh, figure out what the purchasing program terms are. The reason we don't do that on our site, we could go to all the land banks and put all the terms on our site, but they change so frequently. The last thing I want to do is give you bad information. So I really want you to go to the source and make sure that you see that this is the fee simple available land bank program on the right. These programs do rotate frequently, and I just want to make sure you're getting the latest information on the land bank site about the terms of the program so you don't get bad information. So we're going to track the property, the reports, the availability, and all that for you. And when it's time to buy, you will have to go apply for the property. All right, New York, we're going to take a look at. We had 38 parcels added in January. Let's see, who's the most valuable one here? $309,000. Looks like it's in Syracuse. And let's go back and there it is. It's this commercial-looking building on the corner, and yeah, I mean, if you want to buy this property, green button. There's your steps. Links you all the way to the property on their website. This is where you would learn the programs. It says demo candidate buildable. I think that means they're probably gonna, if you read that program, they probably want you to demolish it. But it could be, since it says potential use and buildable, maybe they will let you do something else. That's kind of another reason you want to read these programs carefully. Make sure the building is not condemned and just selling you the land. Michigan, let's look at latest there. We had 5 properties added in January. 3 of them have already disappeared, so we'll just take this top one in Wayne County that is still available. And by the way, we're checking these inventories very frequently, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, depending on which OTC inventory it is, to make sure we remove properties when they're sold. This one looks really nice for a land bank property. Much nicer. I think this has probably been fixed up. You would want to go check out, of course, on their website and see what programs this qualifies for. In this case, I'm looking for, they want $122,000 for it. And yeah, it's actually on our site too. I should have seen it there. The amount due is $122,000. That's because they've already invested in it. They've already done some rehab work. This is probably one of those deals that's primed for a new homeowner or something like that. Read the terms. You might want to, see if you qualify for that program. But this is a turnkey property, which means you're not going to have as much room to flip and make profit on it. But yeah, Michigan land banks are a good source for that. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about Washington, D.C., which is not a land bank. I think if you saw our early January video, you would have seen the DC inventory was offline for a couple months because they had an auction. You can see that illustrated in the chart here where the inventory dives in November and comes back in January. 297 parcels. We did go through these, and there's not a lot to be had here. I mean, if you do the total value, this one says it's $184,000 for this piece of land, but I'm a bit skeptical when I look at it. The next highest, 178,000 and 177,000, but I mean, it's this scrap of land. If you can see the green block here on the satellite view, maybe it's worth that much. I don't know DC that well, but to me, this looks like a scrap. But they're asking 177,000, and they valued it 184. I just don't see a ton of this inventory that's valuable right now. It looked a lot better late summer when there were more properties in it, back like August when 461 new parcels got added, and then they started selling out of that pretty quick. So that's the DC market for you. Now we're going to switch over, and we're going to use the map for these remaining markets. We're going to zip through them. Arizona always has a lot of OTCs. We're going to do in parcel fair. There's so many properties available in Arizona right now because of their auction season that we're going to filter inventory by over the counter. And let's just click go on that and just see what's available over the counter in Arizona right now. And let me switch a couple things here. I'm going to turn on my county borders. So you can see a lot going on in Arizona. There's even some deeds here in the mix. The blue ones are going to be deeds. The green ones are liens over the counter. Let's just view a report on one of these. There are 2 tax liens available on this property. You basically just go follow these instructions to purchase from the treasurer. It's a very manual process in a lot of these Arizona counties to buy. A lot of times you don't get online purchases on OTCs, so you just have to go do it on your own there. Just contact the county. Alabama, we're going to take a look at their OTCs, and the whole state, 18,000 tons to choose from. This is one of those where you're going to use the filters to whittle it down. Improvements only is going to help that a lot. Let's take the county appraisal. Let's look at only $30,000 or more, and we've taken it down to 1,100 properties. That's pretty good. When the whole inventory at 18,000 down to 1,100. I'm not going to spend a ton of time in Alabama today because we just did last week. We did a comprehensive video, hour and 10 minutes, or hour and 5 minutes on Alabama. It's called 10 Ways to Buy Tax Delinquent Property in Alabama. It's on this channel. I'll drop it in the description as well. But we just wanted to get on tape every way we know to buy right now in the state, along with 2 bonus ways. So there's actually 12 things covered, 12 ways covered. So go watch that if Alabama is one of your markets. Like a lot of people really want to try Alabama. So let's flip gears, go to Florida, and we're going to clear our filters out. So statewide in Florida, you have OTC deeds and OTC liens. And actually, let's switch over to now. Let's just stay on the map, I guess. Let's do a quick exercise. Let's do improvements only. Let's just do liens, and let's just see what's in the state for liens over the counter on properties with structures. Shouldn't be as many as the rest of the year, but there's actually more than I thought when I look at it. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you've got a nice scatter there of all these pins and markers and everything. I mean, there's the inland markets, there's the coastals. So a lot going on here in Florida. 438 actually of those that are structures. You could do the same thing for deeds. I can go ahead and tell you there's not going to be much. Let's see. We have to go over the counter deeds in Florida. I think you might get a 0 here. Let's go find out. Yeah, it's going to be a 0. There's just not a lot in Florida deed-wise. A few scraps of land for deed over the counter. Lots of deed auctions, though. Check out our auction videos for that. West Virginia, I'm just going to skip West Virginia because what I'm going to say is, yes, they had a big OTC push in January, but now we're in February, so that market's going offline. You can still find it on our site if you want to look at what was available, but in a few days, I'll probably take it off the site until they put it back. I just wanted to leave it there for reference. West Virginia seems to open and close their market. In fact, if we go back to our slideshow here, West Virginia is second from the bottom. Since we started tracking them last summer, we had the auction in the summer, but we saw OTCs were available during October, then they were offline for 2 months, then they were available again in January. It was quite a few, around 10,000-ish properties. So we don't know what they're going to do next. They might bring it back in, let's say, April. So we're going to keep an eye on that. If that changes, we will let you know on this channel, on these videos. We'll zip through a few other ones here at the end. Pennsylvania does have some over-the-counters. One thing worth noting is those are going to fall under their repository sales, and the repository sales in Pennsylvania, um, sometimes they're scheduled and sometimes they're not. So sometimes it acts like a true OTC where you could just go buy, and sometimes it acts like an auction where there's a date. So these are just the OTC ones you can look at. Missouri, we do have post third sales. Right now, St. Louis is the only one you can shop in, especially for an out of stater. And they keep this open, but there's about 1,000 properties in there right now. Wisconsin is really hit or miss. You're going to see Douglas County has 1,800 properties, but the rest of the state has just scraps. We've looked and looked, and we may add a few of those little ditches and stuff later, but for now, we just stuck to the market where it looked like you could buy the most. So Douglas, Wisconsin, quite a lot going on there. Getting close here, Colorado has a handful of OTCs. Let's see, 900, or no, I'm sorry, 1,300. Those are OTC liens. They're not my favorite, 3-year redemption, and you don't get the property. You really are just doing it for the interest rate in Colorado. Oklahoma is on the decline right now because they did a big release back in July, August. So now we're down to about 200 properties available in Oklahoma over the counter. And lastly, Louisiana. We know a land bank there for, I believe it's Orleans County and over the counter. That's pretty much all we have in Louisiana as well. So I hope this video was helpful to you. A couple other things to mention while we're here. Today we did our very first Parcel Fair 101 training, and by the time you see this video, it'll be a few days later. But we've already scheduled our next one, and we put the video up for the one we just did. So right here we have March 3rd at 1 o'clock Central is the next one. This is meant to help you get started on the site, get the most out of your subscription, and learn all the tools available at your fingertips. The video for today's is right here on the right side. Feel free to watch that. We did a full training hour. You can register for the next one and click the green button or the link here to sign up. And we'll record that one too, so you can always come back and watch it later. While I'm at it, be sure in this connect menu is where you find that at the top. Be sure to check out our YouTube community. That's where you're watching right now. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see these videos as soon as they come out. Some great deals that are timely in nature you want to find out about. So subscribing will help you there. Like this video if this is content you're happy with, because we'll make more of it. The Facebook group is open to you to join here in the Connect menu as well. Click on that, send us a request. We'll add you to the group. A bunch of investors in there that are very happy to help out. People smarter than me. I learn from people in there all the time. Great referrals for local scouts, lawyers, things like that. So it's a great group to network in. We have an online meetups link here. These are some of the expert online meetups we did last year. I won't take time to read all this to you, but there were 3 big ones last year. This is great for your education and tax investing. Probably start at the bottom at the first one, Jason Porter. Some tax investing stuff there, due diligence steps, quiet titles, and title insurance. The September one with bid for assets and gov deals was a great exit strategy one, learning how to buy and then sell property at auction. And then the one in October was Alabama focused on foreclosures, on tax foreclosure to be specific, with Greg Stanley, our attorney there. So these were really good meetups, great content for you to check out as part of your subscription with us. And I think that does it for today. So thank you for watching. We appreciate you, and hope you have a great rest of the day.